Did you know your business can honor God while transforming lives around the world? Welcome to the iBAM Biblical Entrepreneurship Show, the weekly podcast that inspires and equips Christian entrepreneurs to build sustainable businesses that glorify God and uplift impoverished communities. At iBAM, our mission is built on the three fish metaphor. Give a fish. We provide startup loans to launch businesses. Teach to fish. We offer entrepreneur training for lasting growth, equipped for discipleship. We empower discipleship to multiply impact. Join iBAM's founder, Steve Adams, as he shares powerful solo episodes and expert interviews filled with mentorship insights and real-life stories of how biblical entrepreneurship is advancing the Great Commission. Subscribe now and get ready to be inspired, equipped, and empowered to make an eternal impact.
Steve Adams here with Chris Chancey. Chris is the president and CEO of the Jacksonville area National Christian Foundation. Chris also has an extensive background in ministry and in business. And Chris, I'm just honored to have you on this today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah. I feel like I should be the one interviewing you and pulling out wisdom from experience, but I will try to bring some value here.
Thank you. And first of all, just give us a little bit about your family, and then I want to go into give us like maybe a couple of minute overview of your life history, and then we'll get into the practical application.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my wife Sarah and I, we have 3 kiddos. Boaz is 11, Regina. Oh, there he is.
That's okay. Hey, that's totally
Regina's,
okay.
He's a great kid, and I'm so proud of him and what God's doing in his life. He's an entrepreneur. He's got his own business here in our community. It's rocking and rolling, and so we're learning through that. Regina is 5. She's adopted out of foster care, and I'm so grateful that God led us down that path and that journey, and we're learning a lot and very humbled by being her parents.
Yep.
Pearl is 2, and so for Sarah and I, we met at the University of Georgia and felt led to be in the ministry in some capacity. Honestly, felt like that was the only way I could honor the Lord, is to be in traditional ministry as a pastor or missionary. And Sarah's famous line was, "You're not taking my China to China." and so I said, all right, I guess I'll go to seminary and be a pastor. And so we went to Denver Seminary out in Colorado.
Oh, yeah.
So 2 weeks after married, we moved to Denver. Didn't know anybody. I helped with a church plant out there and jumped into seminary, learning Hebrew and
Greek and all that good stuff.
Yeah, it was an incredible season. But it was in that season where, of all places, God started calling us to business and helping us recognize the opportunity to serve and engage people in an incredibly impactful way in the marketplace. Yeah. And that was just from reading scripture, really for the first time in an academic way.
Yeah.
Seeing all these concepts of work and business and stewardship and even generosity leaping off the page, seeing all the miracles and acts that happen in the marketplace. I mean, all this stuff was new, and it started to shift and help us put a theology of work in place, and we didn't even know what that term meant.
Can I ask you real quick before you move on, how pervasive do you see it in your role at NCF, where people are still hanging on to this false dichotomy that there's only real ministry is only if you're in the ministry and that everything else is secular?
Yeah, I think there's been so much content and so much different resources that are out there now that weren't even available 10 years ago, that's speaking to that point. And so I think people are starting to grasp it. The key, though, is we need those who are standing at the pulpit to be able to communicate that in an effective way. And I think that is happening. More and more pastors who feel comfortable leaning into that conversation. Yep. And it's not just a one Sunday a year kind of discussion, but it's starting to be more pervasive in every discussion and every message. So that, I think, is where we will really start to see more transformative engagement there. But yeah, there's certainly still people that it's so ingrained.
It is. It's so ingrained.
And it's an effort from the enemy in a lot of ways to bring distraction and division in the way that we live our lives. That it's not just work so that I can give some money away, but it's in that work that we get to worship the Lord. I just heard an incredible story yesterday of people who are in media, who are editing, video editors and producers and editing content. and they gave a day of their time to a ministry and did a bunch of editing work for that ministry. And for the first, they said, I was praying for your ministry as I was editing this video. And then it clicked with me. I've never prayed for any of my other clients that are paying me lots of money to do editing projects for them. That's the connection between Sunday and Monday.
Yeah.
And as he started to articulate it, it just was opening up this huge opportunity.
And Monday can be purpose driven now for the rest of their lives. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, keep going. You at some point you left Denver Seminary, it sounds, and jumped into business.
Actually, while we were still
while you were there, you didn't have enough to do.
Yeah. And it was like, we've got to have a real world lab, like a real world place to flesh this out. Like what we're learning in the classroom is great.
Yeah.
And I was the squeaky wheel asking questions that related all of what we were learning back to work versus straight into the ministry. But yeah, we got to have a place to flesh this out. Is this theology of work thing actually work? Is it impactful? And so we got to come alongside and learn at a Chick-fil-A. So my wife and I got the opportunity to manage a Chick-fil-A. We were making $10 an hour.
Making lots of chicken sandwiches.
But it was a $4 million restaurant, and we had our hands on the food costs and the labor costs and just just managing people and trying to apply what we were learning in that setting. But that's what really gave us the confidence to say, let's go start some things. And so for both my wife and I, we've started multiple companies, and early on it was like, what can we do with $25? What can we do with $100?
Bootstrapping.
Just learn and be willing to work and learn how to develop a website, learn how to all these things that at some point you find the best you can and you pay them well. But we just weren't in a season where that was even an option. And I think that scrappiness, I hope we don't lose that. That's just part of God's stewardship. And so a lot of failure in that season, but we learned so much. And there's a return on failure if you're willing to see that.
Yeah. And the prerequisite is persistence. If you don't keep going, failure is final and it is costly. But if you keep going and adapting, that's where I've said so many times for younger people is what I have learned, because I'm an old man now, and I've seen a lot of people do well, and there's this common theme. They just would not quit when everybody else would. Yeah. And
it's a level of risk and a level of faithfulness in that is very biblical, but it's so easy, again, to, as we talked about a few minutes ago, to allow the enemy's voice or perspective, even within the church, to say, hey, mitigate risk, remove risk.
Get comfortable.
Pull back on.
Can I ask you this, Chris, is another practical point. How do you feel business disciples you?
So at the outset, you just like we talked about failure, you've got to allow that to even be an option, right? Yeah. Can I recognize the opportunities within business to refine us and to draw us closer to the Lord in our relationship? But man, if you're open to that, it is a daily discipleship.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I know.
One of my mentors would say, you're walking a tightrope in business every day. Ooh. That's really between what we would describe in the world as success and failure. And there's this sense of this tightrope is very thin. There's decisions every day that could push me one way or the other. But if it's not for the Lord's guidance and direction, we often would pray this cloud by day, fire by night, leading us on. We're dependent on you. Yep. And just like David did in the Psalms, we've got to nail down these moments in our life and in our business, especially where we saw God show up and do things that we knew in that moment were only because of his presence and his Holy Spirit moving. Because if we don't, time will wear away at, well, that probably happened because of these other scenarios or something that I did that created. And then we get in these other moments, because they're constant, where we're doubting, we're anxious, we're frustrated, and something's not going the way we wanted. Our expectations are up. And in those moments, we have to be able to reflect back on those Ebenezers that we raised previously and discipleship in the business. That we could talk for hours on that.
I agree. One of the challenges that I've learned, I'm in my 60s. I exited a business. I had enough money to retire and live the rest of my life in comfort. And I'm not saying this out of any kind of pride, but the Lord led me back into business and to put it at risk. Yeah. And I will tell you that, and you're familiar with one of my businesses there in Florida, that business took twice as much money as I thought it was going to take to really get it right.
Yeah.
And my wife and I had to be willing to go, are we willing, even at our age, to put it at risk and to be uncomfortable? Do we really believe what we believe? And in Matthew 6, that the section, it's like after 19, verse 19, where Jesus is teaching about you can't serve God and money. And then there's the piece, and then there's this little, it looks like it's by itself. And if you have good eyes, your eyes are full of light. And if you have bad eyes, and I listened to a Jewish pastor. He's got a podcast called the Bama podcast, Marty Solomon.
I love this podcast.
Yeah. And he talks about, well, people from that time period in Israel would have understood that it's not about lust or anything like that. It's about how they see the world.
Right.
And if you have good eyes, it means that you believe that God has your back. Like he's not holding out on you, that you can be free to give your money, to put it all, take risk, because you know the Lord has got you. And I will tell you, Chris, I didn't know that lesson in my first 53 years of my life. And when I built and sold my last company, anxiousness was always a problem in my walk. And in the last 8 years, God taught me that lesson.
Yeah.
And business discipled me. And now I am free of that. Obviously, it's a daily thing, but I'm free of it in a way I've never been free. And it was business that discipled me to that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. We could talk things that I think in that process of risking and having good eyes and seeing God's favor.
Yep.
There's also the recognition, because we're in this right now with a current company that is failing.
Yeah.
And we took a risk to, and I don't know what the end of the story is. I don't necessarily see in this moment that it's going to be successful. And there's this sense that God, it doesn't mean that God's not with us or that our eyes shift. It's still God's favor. It's still God's blessing. But what is he doing in this? Because right now it doesn't feel
good.
Anything I would have elected to be a part of.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Can I still risk? Can I still trust? Can I still have faith? Yeah, I've got to. I don't have another choice. Peter says, like, where else are we going to go? You have the words of life. And so
beautiful. Wow.
Yeah, it's a full conversation on that is yet to come.
Of course. Yeah. We're just touching on some things here. So let's talk about, so what was the business that you ultimately built up? And what I really am getting at is not like a detailed story of that. Maybe just give us an overview, because you exited it. But what were the practical ideas that or concepts that came out of that in terms of being a kingdom-oriented disciple-making business?
Yeah. So I love sharing about this business. And like you said, the company itself is great, and it's so grateful that God allowed us to be a part of that. But it's also what came out of that was hopefully something that can even be impactful for those listening today. So one of companies we started was a staffing agency placing refugees into jobs. So we had moved back to Georgia from Colorado. We moved into and bought our first home in a community that's called the most diverse square mile in the U.S. It's right outside of Atlanta, Georgia. And refugees have been resettled in this community since the 1960s. And they've come in waves from different parts of the world. And some have moved out a little further and some have stayed. And so you have this beautiful tapestry of all these different communities and ethnic backgrounds around the world represented in this one small little piece of land. So it's called Clarkston. And if you look that up, you'll see tons of videos and content. There's documentaries, there's incredible books. And so we did not know somehow about that history. We were just trying to find a home we could afford. And so we moved into this community, and literally on our street, we're meeting neighbors who are from different parts of the world. Anytime we're running errands to the post office or the grocery store, we're face to face with people who did not grow up in the communities where we grew up.
They don't look like you, talk like you, think like you.
Exactly. Right? And so much of their view of the world, certainly from a faith standpoint, but just in terms of just way of life, was so different than mine. There was an immediate desire to engage with them and learn and just be curious about where they're coming from and what they're thinking and what life is like for them, just purely from a neighbor standpoint, just to engage and so many of those coming from a Muslim background or coming from a Buddhist or Hindu background, just wanting to meet them and know them and hear their story. So in the media at this point, this is 2013, refugees were being positioned as one thing in the news. And if you just read those articles, you would see them as one thing.
Yeah.
What we quickly learned is that these individuals in conversations I was having, just shallow one-off conversations in a grocery store, someone would quickly get to the place where they're asking me to help them find a job. So the idea was pretty quickly in my head recognizing this is not someone who's a terrorist threat. This is not someone who's a charity case. This is
They
an
want to
individual
work. Yeah.
who wants to work. And they are a workforce if we can choose to see that. And what initially started as a side thing, let's just see if we can help some people get jobs and connect them with some of our business community in the Atlanta area, quickly became, is this a for-profit company that we can leverage and focus on this community? And so the course of 8 years, we placed around 20,000 refugees into jobs all over the U.S. What started in Atlanta, we grew to 14 offices. And it was just God's favor on relationships in those communities as well as relationships in the marketplace that allowed this thing to really take off and explode. But the key was that, yes, we're providing jobs. On a good week, we could place 100 people into a job.
Wow.
But in that same given week, there would be 500 people showing up at one of our offices in the country looking for a job.
Wow.
So like the tension that anyone in business feels that would also say they are someone who's reading scripture and trying to follow the Lord, they lay their pillow down on the head at night. They lay their head down on their pillow at night. And there's this friction of, God, I want to bring value. I want to serve people. I want people that I'm engaging with in my business to know you. And yet the day to day, I just want to keep the doors open. I want to be profitable. I want to meet goals that we have. I want to pay back investors, whatever that is. And so what does that look like to try to put something in place that's going to have spiritual impact when everyone's really just pursuing the bottom line financial impact? And so early on, the friction for us was, can we identify spiritual metrics that can impact spiritual impact and growth that are in line with our financial bottom line, so that if one of these things grow, the other grows, that they're correlated in a positive way. And I think so often the business owners I've met that are trying to have spiritual impact, their goals that they set for those things and the metrics they're tracking are sometimes in opposition to the financial drivers of the business. And so at any point that the financials are struggling, they're going to have priority. Or at any point, someone involved as an investor or a leader in your company doesn't fully understand the spiritual stuff, they're going to question and have a good right to say, why are we doing these things over here that are in opposition to the business goals that we have?
Yep.
And so we just say, let's first look at the mission and vision values of the company. Let's look at the goals that you have as a company. And within that, let's then identify the vendors, the stakeholders, the overall individual groups that you're serving within the business, and identify one of those that you think you can have great spiritual impact in. But it's baked within where you're already going and where God's already leading you as a profitable company. And so once that clicked for us, then we can start putting in some very simple spiritual impact planning around the growth of the business and the overall impact that we were having as a company.
One of the things I love about it is you were seriously promoting shalom and human flourishing, because you were taking people who had a fundamental need around a fundamental pillar of God's creation, which is work and the dignity of work. And you were matching those up and giving them hope and a place to fit into this new society. That's amazing. So did you end up coming up with, is this something you teach now, Chris, to businesses? Because I'm sitting here thinking, you live really close to one of my businesses, and I would love to put this in place at my store. Did you do that? Do you have some kind of a resource that people can get, or how does this work?
Yeah, so we were stumbling forward trying to figure this out. And by means, did I feel like we ever got to the place where this was a well-oiled machine or process. But as I looked around and tried to find mentors and companies that were doing this well, I realized, man, everybody's struggling to try to figure this out. And there's not a one size fits all or a perfect plan out there that's just going to make it easy to do spiritual impact within the business model that you're in. But let's put down on paper the things that we're trying to do and make that available for others. And so as we went through that process, we tried to distill it and make it super simple. And we did have the opportunity to share that with hundreds of other companies that would say, yes, we want to be successful and from a financial standpoint. And yeah, we want to have social impact in what we're doing. And
Of course, it's all related. Yeah.
Loving our neighbors well, loving your neighbors yourself. But when it comes to what it looks like to see somewhere in our business model, we want the gospel to be weaved into the work that we do. For some companies, that means we're going to share the gospel with every single customer or with every employee or knock on every door at our multifamily apartment complex. For others, it means we're going to pray as a team. The people who believe in prayer are going to get together on some regular basis and pray over our business. Somewhere on that spectrum, how are you weaving the gospel into the business model that you have? And we just broke that down into 2 categories to make it very simple for any company in any industry, anywhere in the world, to say, hey, we can do this. And so it was simple as saying, what are the spiritual integration activities that you want to pursue?
Yep.
It may just be one thing, but these are the ways we're trying to integrate the gospel into our business model. So it could be prayer, a prayer call on a weekly basis, a devotion that we do with anybody who wants to show up once a month. It could be the way that we're hosting a party and we're engaging specifically with people to share the gospel. It could be that we offer marriage counseling, or we offer trauma counseling, or we create space for a chaplain. There's 100 different things, probably more than that we've seen companies doing all over the world. But it's something that's black and white that you can measure.
Tangible. Yep.
We're going to pray once a month over our company and prayer walk around our building. And at the end of the year, we're going to do that 12 times because we're going to do it once a month. So you can measure that. Did you do it or not? We did it 11 out of 12 times. You've got a very clear
metric. Did you do devotionals? Whatever
Whatever it is, it's got to be something that you can control the outcome of it and you can measure it. Or you're not controlling the outcome, but you can control whether it happens or not. So those are spiritual integration activities.
Yeah.
And then you pair that with spiritual formation outcomes. So these are the ways that God is forming people into people more like Christ because they showed up at this event, because they were prayed for, because they attended a devotion, because they are working in your company and you are infusing the gospel in some meaningful way into the business model. They were exposed to that. So these are the outcomes that you would love to see happen. You'd love to see 10 people in our company this year come to faith in Christ. You'd love to see people, our customers, we'd love to see 100 customers that we serve this year get baptized and be actively attending a local church. Those are incredible goals, and we can't control the outcome of those goals.
No, we can't. No.
And so
but there's a process that you can metric the process.
We want to say, what are the things we're doing that could dramatically impact the potential of these outcomes for occurring? And the great thing about it is those things are really hard to measure. There's no way you could your metric around how many people are actively involved in local church. There's no way. But
we struggle with that at iBAM.
Totally. Yeah. But if we have a measurement there and we say, man, we want to see 10 people come to faith in our company this year, and someone does, and we got to be a part. Now we're celebrating what God's doing in our business, and we know something that we contributed to that allowed for that to happen, and everyone gets fired up about it. And they say, we want to do more of this over here because we know it can lead to this over here.
Wow.
And so at the end of the year, did you get 10? I don't know. But man, we've seen some incredible things happen, and we want to track it because it's just, we want to know, we want to be able to celebrate when God's showing up in our business and doing things that we couldn't have controlled ourselves. So it's been such a joy to walk alongside companies with something that's not even ours. It's just a couple categories, put a plan together that has one thing in each of these categories and just pray into it and see what happens. And maybe you add 10. There's companies we've done this with that have 20, but it's just a process. Start somewhere, start pushing in on that. Be a good steward of the resources and the relationships that God's put in front of you with your business.
I love the simplicity of it. It's a way to really live out the good eyes concept of, let's just do this one thing in 2026 faithfully. We'll measure it. And let's watch what God does. That's the fun part, is just watching what God does. So I love it. So Chris, I want to wrap up with this one question. You and your wife were at University of Georgia, went off to seminary. You were young, you had a new business. What's your encouragement to people who are back where you were maybe in 2013 as a Christ follower trying to like figure this all out?
Yeah.
And I
So
know I didn't prep you for that question, so just take a shot at it.
yeah. Okay. So I'll hit on three things. So I'll do
Sure.
two really quickly that'll be obvious, and then one that I think is maybe slightly against the
Yeah.
grain. So,
Okay.
so the first two is you've got to work really hard to find faith-aligned mentors that you can go to, and you can lay out struggles and things that are happening within the business. The counsel you're going to get is in line with the word, is in line with your value system, and they're not going to challenge you or push you to do things that are outside of trusting and having faith in the Lord for where God's leading you in the business. So they're going to challenge you certainly, but it's going to be within the bounds of Scripture and within your faith. So work really hard to find faith-aligned mentors. The second thing along those lines is work really hard to have faith-aligned capital.
Ooh,
So
big. Yeah.
often the capital that we receive as an investment or in the form of a loan or in the form of equity, whatever, if it has ulterior motives involved that you're going to push you towards that bottom line alone, it can drive you away
Yep.
and force you to either drift slowly or very intentionally away from the desires that God's put in your heart in the business model that you have. And so that's not always possible, but work really hard to pursue faith aligned capital. And you got to do it well before you actually need it. You can't just
Right.
wait until you're in trouble to go out,
Right.
pursue that now and those relationships now. Sometimes those are both. Those mentors are a source of faith aligned capital, but do that before you feel like you're in a place where you actually need it. Mike
Mm.
Bear, who's one of the individuals a part of the summit, has been such an incredible mentor for me, and I'm so grateful. We started that relationship before we were in some moments of real struggle within that business model. So those are two obvious.
Yeah.
The third one I'll touch on
Take your
is
time
around,
on it.
is
Yeah.
around generosity. So often you just feel like we're maxed out. We've got to do whatever we can and squeeze every penny to tighten every screw to get to the next season. And somewhere in that, there's the generosity of time and the generosity of resources that says, God, you are in control. All these dollars that I've been given to steward are yours. My time and my resource and
Yep.
my competency, all that's yours. And God, I'm going to give you my Sabbath because working on the Sabbath is not going to accomplish anything more
Right.
than me having my faith and my trust prioritized in a way that I can be fully present with my family and fully present with you at least one day a week. I'm going to give that to you. I'm going to be generous. It's, by the way, it's not ours to be generous with, but that's how I feel.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to
Right.
be generous with that time. But even more than that, where do I contribute financial resources to things that are going to impact the kingdom in a meaningful way? That feels countercultural to what I need to be doing to continue to support my family or my business. I think God honors that, and it's not an immediate dollar for dollar reward kind of prosperity thing, but I just think there's something we see throughout Scripture that God honors that. And so we tried to be intentional around that, and certainly there are ways we failed. But as we got to the point where we were looking at selling the company, one of the things we recognized was that we could sell our business, we could take some of the cash from the sale of our company, and immediately we just think, oh, 10%. We'll take 10% of the cash we sell. We're going to give it to our local church, or we're going to invest it in charity and business opportunities that are going to advance the kingdom. And we knew that could be something, and we were really excited about that. But one of the things was that's going to give us a 30% tax deduction on what we give.
Yep.
We realized if we were to give a percentage of the business that we own to a donor advised fund at National Christian Foundation, we would get 100% tax deduction on the gift of that business. And so we actually ended up being able, through going through the process, we recognized we could give so much more than we were planning to give after a sale, because it was going to completely reduce our tax that we owed. And in the process, then we get to give away even more. And so
Wow.
as we went down that road, it was just the what God was doing in our heart around generosity, it changed our life and it changed our perspective on what God was calling us to do. And so we ended up getting to sell the company. We went through the process of giving a portion of that business away to our donor advised fund and NCF. And as we transitioned from the business, it allowed us to step into this role now of running the Jacksonville office for National Christian Foundation and help other companies go through the same process to be good stewards of what God's entrusted us with from a stewardship and a generosity perspective. And so it's been incredible to be able to give funds away to great ministries. It's been incredible to support for-profit Christian business and invest in them and see what God's doing around the globe, especially among the unchurched and unreached peoples of the world through business and through ministry, just by being generous from something that God had already put into our hands. So those are the big things I would encourage and even wish I had been able to press into more back when we got things rolling.
How do they find you, Chris, so they can learn more about the National Christian Foundation?
Yeah, happy to connect over the phone or email or the easiest ways. So happy to share that information. My email address is just my name, so cchancy@ncfgiving.com. Happy to be a resource wherever you are on the nonprofit side, for-profit side, or family just wanting to be faithful stewards of what God's entrusted with. And then my cell phone, feel free to reach out. U.S. number 912-281-8708. And I would love to be a resource for anyone out there just asking questions and looking for more information.
Chris, thank you for being on the summit. This was a lot of fun. And your 3 suggestions of a mentor, faith aligned capital, and being proactive about investing for the kingdom are huge. So thank you very much.
Yeah, all that we've learned is from failure and from God's grace. He gets all the glory for anything good that we have to share, but grateful for having the time and grateful to be a part of this community.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the International Business as Mission podcast, a space where we explore how to build businesses rooted in biblical principles that create global impact. But we're not just here to talk. We're taking action to spread entrepreneurship to poverty-stricken communities around the world. Our mission is to be the catalyst that empowers people to build sustainable livelihoods and break the cycle of poverty. We follow the 3 fish principle. 1, give a fish, providing startup loans to empower entrepreneurs. 2, teach to fish, offering entrepreneurial training for sustainable business practices. And 3, equip for disciple making, building a community that supports spiritual growth alongside business success. This is life-changing work, but we can't do it alone. We need passionate impact partners like you to join us on this mission by becoming a donor. Your generous gift will directly fund the establishment of new businesses that provide dignified work and hope. Just imagine your donation could help a single mother in rural Africa start a small farming venture that allows her to feed her children and send them to school, or a young man in Southeast Asia to launch a small business. Breaking the chains of generational poverty. This is the power of entrepreneurship as a force for good. Will you join us in unleashing it? Go to ibam.org now to start impacting lives through the transformative power of business as mission. Together we can create a world of flourishing.